Hello, I'm Dan Creasey. I'm the marketing manager from TOUGHBOOK in the UK, and I'm joined by Nick Miller. Nick, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Hi, guys. I'm Nick Miller. I'm responsible for the enterprise business at Panasonic TOUGHBOOK UK, and I also look after our utilities customers across UK and Ireland.
So I'm going to be probing Nick about his sector and in particular about Android and security and how the utilities sector and enterprise more in general is maybe moving towards Android and their sort of thoughts on it. So I've got a few questions for you, Nick, a few questions from me. So for your sector, what are the most common challenges that your customers face with mobile devices?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I think I'd probably break that question down into kind of two categories. When you talk about the definition of a customer for Panasonic, obviously we could talk about the relationship with a IT department, for example, who have specific challenges. But I think it's really important to remember that the customer for Panasonic TOUGHBOOK is ultimately the end user. And probably the most common challenge that an end user would have is productivity and having a device that is reliable and can work for a significant period of time. And typically that means a full shift that they'll be working. And so if you think about reliability from a mobile device, there's numerous things that kind of will play into that. That might be something such as battery performance. It may be connectivity. It may be speed of device. It may be access and use of ports, or it may be something as very simple as reliability in terms of ruggedization of being able to be dropped or withstand vibration that may be present driving from job to job. So I think reliability and productivity for an end user, and then when you flip that and you think about an IT department, for example, a common challenge for an organization supporting field devices may be something like longevity of support, longevity of supply, but also considerations of things like management of devices, security of devices. So I think they would probably be the common challenges for an IT department in that regard.
And in your sector, what's the sort of split between Windows and Android? Are people moving from one to the other, or are they is it quite stable on one OS at the moment?
I think it's really important to remember that there's a role in business for both. I probably wouldn't say that there is there's many organisations that have all of one or another. So if I think about a utilities customer, they may have an estate of field mobile devices for specific technicians that may be Windows based. But in many organisations, the kind of go-to from a mobile phone perspective would be iOS or Android. So I think most organisations now will have had exposure to Android. But I would still say that a large majority of our enterprise-based customers are using Android, are using Windows, but the adoption of Android is definitely growing.
And why is that adoption growing? Is there certain jobs where Android is better, or what are the sort of drivers behind the adoption of Android?
I think for the adoption of Android, some are through choice, and some customers are maybe forced into making that move. Obviously, very key or fundamental element of an operation for a customer is an application that may run on that mobile device. And we have seen that a few customers run applications that future generations would only, for example, support Android. And in that case, a decision is therefore made by the customer to adopt new Android technology or change applications. So obviously they need to weigh that decision up. With regards to choice, I think for Android operating system, the ability to manage devices in a better way, access to readily available applications on the Google Play Store, and maybe the flexibility that Android will give tends to be kind of the drivers in terms of a preference of operating system. But like I said, I think it's important that there's no sort of standard, and it's dependent on customers' preferences, and there is definitely still room for both Windows and Android within multiple organizations.
So you touched upon some of the benefits of the Android OS. So why is the combination of TOUGHBOOK and Android so good together?
Well, I think it's important to remember that Panasonic have played in the kind of mobile device market for 25 plus years. We've been developing notebook, tablet technology for a significant period of time, and of course, comes with that experience comes with quality and reliability of product. So in the early days of Android, we saw a lot of what we would define as consumer grade devices, devices that were developed and designed based on consumer grade use, so not in such harsh environments as Panasonic. So we've taken all of our learnings and experience through developing technology for tablets and notebooks, and brought that into the Android space. Ultimately, we're talking about Android tablet and handheld technology. So everything that's good that we've developed in terms of the hardware, we've brought that over to the product set that we have for Android. That gives us the ability to have devices that are flexible, that are highly reliable, and can obviously offer high levels of productivity. But then if I flip back to that IT kind of support element, Panasonic TOUGHBOOK do things differently from others by offering long-term support and an ecosystem that sits around the device that gives customers and IT departments reliability and security guarantees, not only in the short term, but over an extended period, which is kind of historically the case with rugged field-based devices.
What's the difference between taking a consumer device and using it in the workplace to taking a TOUGHBOOK or another device? What are the sort of, why do you need that long-term support in business, basically, I think is my question.
So I think the Android operating system is slightly different from Windows in the fact that the emphasis is on the vendor, the OEM, so Panasonic in that regard, to provide the security patches. So that's essentially a patch that will be deployed over the air to a device to ensure that there's no security risk. So it's really important for our customers, mostly working in critical environments. And as you will have seen on the news in recent times, there's been maybe a growth in things like hacking. So our customers, and a utility customer may be a great example of this, they need a device not only to be reliable and productive, but they need a device that is secure and can give their businesses those assurances. So by offering long-term and premium security support, Panasonic can provide that to our customers.
And what are the specific security challenges that your sector sees, or perhaps generally with Android?
Yeah, so I've talked about the kind of consumer grade market, and we have seen some customers adopt consumer grade technology for field users. What's common with consumer grade technology is the reliance and the importance of keeping up to date with that latest Android operating system, which typically comes on a yearly basis. What Panasonic do differently is we offer firstly long-term support, but also a long-term OS roadmap on our devices. So if you can imagine, a consumer grade device may change from, let's say, Android 11 to 12 to 13 very quickly. In line with that, the typical Google support for that is a limited period. So we look at maybe 3 or 4 years, but that's typically from product launch. Of course, to get 4 years from a consumer grade device, you need to be buying it on the day that the product was launched. Where Panasonic work is we provide assurances and consistency of the roadmap to ensure that customers can achieve long-term support, one, on a specific version of Android operating system, but also extend that support to ensure that a customer can get longevity and consistency of build and support an ecosystem that sits around a particular device or operating system. So what that may mean is that if a customer is looking to invest in technology for a longer period of time, so maybe we're talking 4 or 5 years, that would potentially pose a risk that if they were to provide a device without long-term security support, then their devices could be at risk or have a threat of hacking. Panasonic can give guarantees on security support for the length of the project, and therefore they can provide a device and a platform that is risk-free from a security perspective. And I think for Panasonic over the last 2 years, it's very much been a process of educating customers, ultimately with the manufacturer or the vendor being responsible for the security patches. It's their responsibility to communicate these to customers. So you may get security patches for a specific period of time, but what I would always challenge customers to do is to work with the vendor and understand how long their security patches last, on which version of operating system they last, and can they extend those. So TOUGHBOOK will differentiate and is different, because what we will do is we'll be clear up front, but it will also support long-term security if that is required with a specific customer. So we'll always work back from the end date of when they need support for, and we'll work on an operating system by operating system version back to that point.
Okay, Nick, so what does TOUGHBOOK offer then compared to any other technology that's out there?
Okay, so Dan, we've talked about the two things more recently over the last few points. Firstly, what TOUGHBOOK offers is a product that is reliable and will improve productivity. So we've taken everything that's positive and everything that's been successful in Panasonic TOUGHBOOK devices over the last 25 years and brought those to our Android products. But what's important is we're aligning that with an ecosystem that sits around the device that gives customers confidence and clarity around things like operating system version, long-term support, management of devices. I don't think there's many, or there is any other vendors that can offer that unique proposition of a product that is best in class, and a security offering and a support offering that is best in class as well.
And the final question I have, Nick, is based on the evolution of your customer-specific challenges over the last few years, because you've been working in the sector for a while. Why would you recommend TOUGHBOOK as a solution for the future?
Okay, so if I think about maybe a typical utilities customer, if I cast my mind back 15 years ago when I was at school, but when I think about back 15 years ago, it was a one-size-fits-all approach for organisations. So we typically supplied a fully rugged notebook style product, and regardless of use case within a utilities organisation, they would typically carry and use that device for their job. What we've seen more recently is the growth of user personas. So it's no longer one size fits all, and there's different requirements that different field users have. I think Panasonic are in a very unique position that we are able to service and support many of those different user personas. So whether you're a utilities worker that is using a mapping application that is heavily reliant on processing capability and screen size, we have a Windows product that fits that. Or in the same specific customer, you may have a team of meter reading engineers that are simply walking down the road, and the meter is directly sending information to the device, and they're doing that over the air, and therefore you don't need such a big, heavy, bulky device. So Panasonic are in a unique position that we have a range of products and a range of different options based on operating system, form factor, screen size, ruggedization, that can accompany an organization and be a fit for many different applications within that particular business.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. I think that was the end of all my questions. So thank you for answering all of them. And if anyone watching this has any questions around Android or Android security or a specific issue you're having, then feel free to reach out. We can send Nick your way or one of our other guys. So thank you very much for watching.
Thanks, guys.